Hello, hello. Welcome to Night Night.
Hello, hello. Welcome again to another episode. Thank you for joining us. My name's Elgin. This is my best friend.
Jason, one of the many Jasons. There's another
Many
best friend
Jasons I
Jason.
know. Exactly. Quite a few of them.
It's a good name, the healer. It's Greek.
Right?
Yeah, and there we go. And that's the daily name lesson. So, how was your
I was just
week
thinking, I have no
after,
idea what my name means. Now that makes me wonder.
isn't it, no, I mean,
I
honestly,
know
it's
there was
not
an
even,
English lord way back in the day that he was named Lord Elgin. That was his last name, but not his first name. So
Lord Elgin. Oh, hey,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
where was that? I was watching that too. They had that guy. They had him. Oh man, I think I was watching something and they had a Lord Elgin, and I'm only now remembering it. It was like yeah, British. I don't know. I can't place it. If it was
I
like
mean,
part
I
of,
make everybody call me Lord that I can, but that's just for for my own
yeah,
ego.
but we've been friends long enough to where like I passed the 7 year mark and I got to stop calling you that. You know what I mean?
Right? There's a limit to
He
to
did
when
make
you
it.
have
He
to.
did make it go on too long. It did go on too long, but you
Uncomfortably
know,
too long.
uncomfortably too long. So this week, diving into reincarnation. This is an interesting one for a lot of different reasons. I've been fascinated by this idea for a long time. I've never had my own. I think I'm from, not like consciously, but I don't know. I've been fascinated with this for a long time, actually.
Yeah, this is something I never really delved into as much as I would like to, but I mean, there's so many like theories on it that when it was easy to research and easy to look into and kind of build my own beliefs, yes or no on it, I know that's a shocking thing, apparently.
Yeah, I'm so shocked. I'm so shocked I forgot to not swallow into
Breathe.
my lungs.
There you go. As much as you think you're Aquaman, you are not. I'll say
I
that.
try. I really hard. Of all the Jasons, I'm not the Momoa.
I mean, I know everybody's shocked by your appearance alone. I would have guessed that you are, but not
I
today.
mean, honestly, stupid crazy beverage. Um, it was yeah, my stature. I am taller. I am more muscular. I do have more hair. I am handsomer, but I'm not of the caliber of a Jason Momoa. No,
Yeah, yeah. I
honestly,
mean,
I'm worse in every way. The moment they laid the moniker on him, we all went down. We like the grading curve got rounded to a point, and it was like all of a sudden, like you couldn't climb the hill, you just fell down the slopes. You know what I mean? Like that's us trying to climb up an 87% incline.
inclined,
Thanks,
right?
Jason Momoa. But at the
Mess up the
same
curve for the
time,
rest of us.
same time, it's like, oh, that's my name. No, honestly,
I'm a
Jason Momoa is too
Jason
damn
too.
cool. It's
Nah, he did
it's
a
it's
great job
just
on that, though.
you want to hate people for being like cooler, but then it's like, damn, no, I just can't. But yeah, that's not. I wonder if he was reincarnated.
I wonder if he believes he was. That's always one
I
thing.
wonder.
I mean,
There's the idea of it. What did you look into when we decided we were going to do this?
so I went to the obvious ones, or a few of the obvious ones. The Hindu religion is one that's been around for a long time, as well as the Buddhist sect, not sect, I shouldn't say that, religion of it. I also started looking into kind of the Christianity, if there was any Christianity ones, which is very, very few. Even the ones that are there are like misconstrued scriptures that they say. Every Christian believes it's misconstrued of some sort of way, or misinterpreted. So it's kind of a dead end with the Christianity thing. Also, they made it. Go ahead.
I was going to ask what is some of the particularly Christian mentalities that you saw, because
So
I actually
one of the
didn't know too
ones,
much about that.
yeah, it's pretty interesting. So one of the ones they talk about is John the Baptist. Let me pull up this note. Hang on one second.
Really? Do they think that he was reincarnated or
Yeah, so they basically, in one of the scriptures, it talks about John the Baptist being of the spirit of Elijah the prophet and him returning in that spirit. It's not so much saying that it does say he returned, but it's trying to, in the scripture, the way that you read it nowadays is how we read it. It sounds like they're saying like, hey, he came back much like this person, or much like this embodiment. Like you would say like, man, you know what, you came back in the, in a Hulk fashion, or a really strong way, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of how it's
okay?
written, but it's taken as he died and he came back as Elijah the prophet. But John the Baptist didn't die in that way, and Elijah the prophet died in a totally different way. So it's kind of not a gray area. It's kind of like it doesn't fit one of a thing.
I didn't ever even know about that. I had been raised Christian as well, of course, and I didn't know that that was some kind of contention relating to
Well, there's a Doctor
reincarnation or
Schopenhauer.
not.
Yeah, Schopenhauer. He actually is, well, one person that he's a Christian and he believes in reincarnation, and he goes into it in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of his books. And he's from way back, like in the 1930s. I think he even has books. So yeah, a lot of his stuff he tries to kind of, in my opinion, make the puzzle piece fit when it comes to the Christianity side of it, which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
But it also kind of defeats a lot of the purpose of resurrection in the Bible. So it kind of nullifies each other, which is odd. It's like you're saying, okay, you have to die to come back to be resurrected. But when you get resurrected, you're not going to come back, or you could come back as yourself or as someone else. So that kind of confused me, that a lot of his argument was set up that way.
Hmm. I think that anytime you find that someone is trying to bend the findings of their research to meet the end goal that they want, that's going to be an issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of that whole, like the movie 23. We talk about that sometimes. Like anytime you're
Yeah.
trying to fit your narrative in there, and you're changing the way the information is produced to fit that narrative, I'm like, man, you're losing me on this one.
I I see a lot of people do that for a lot of paranormal things. You know what I mean? Bigfoot. They work backwards. They work backwards from the assumption, and that is, assuming that it is correct for sure. We know that it's for sure. We just can't prove it yet. So
Right,
we'll
right.
work back from there. That you can't build toward. You can't build a bridge from that side of the mountain, right? Because you're
Well,
not over there.
they're doing it in the Star Trek way of thing, or Star Wars way of thing, not the Star Trek way.
Not the Star Trek way.
No,
By the
yeah, the
way,
Star
that's the
Trek way
second
would
time
be
Elgin started the.
I have to start the war, anyways. But
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those
And
things. Like, it's assumed everybody knows that this thing is happening. So now we're just going to explain to you how we feel this thing is happening, and that's like the most non scientific way of doing it, in my opinion.
you think that Star Wars is like more religiously, Christiany, spirity, and maybe Star Trek's a little more
Oh, absolutely,
like
because it's faith based
none of
as
that
opposed
matters,
to,
right?
well, I mean, Star Wars is all faith based. You have to believe in it for it to work. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It's kind of like Tinkerbell, which is also bullcrap.
And,
So you
and in Star Trek, every time that you find out that the gods of everyone's planet is real, it's because because you meet them on their spaceship and they're like,
It's because you met,
damn,
yeah, you
it
meet them, you're
got
like,
me. It
ah,
got me.
these people, they're
Um,
just hoodwinking everybody. Exactly.
See, when it comes to the Christian reincarnation, I kind of think it, if you die and then become a spirit version of yourself, isn't that reincarnation? In a way, I mean, isn't just the becoming of a different being at all. That's reincarnation. Like I can't conceive of what it would be like
I mean,
to
I
not be
guess.
bound by the physical world. I would instantly become a different creature altogether. You know what I mean?
I mean, I look at it like this, like there's so many different levels of reincarnation that they talk about. So for instance, like you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
is it a physical reincarnation of another human body? Is it a energy reincarnation? Is it a animal or human to animal reincarnation? Is it a, down to molecular structure? It's like, okay, well, when you die and you turn to ashes, you reincarnated into dirt. And I'm like, all right, we're
Those are
making the
completely
puzzle fit,
physical, though, right?
Well, it would be
And that's
physical,
one
but
way.
not in the idea of, physical from body to bodiment. It'd be, from something to something, or from body to something else, which is, in my
And
opinion,
so
kind of like you're making it fit.
and that one is, I guess, technically that would be transmigration of the soul, correct? Whereas there is an entity that inhabits. Is that related to the Elijah John the Baptist thing, where it was the soul of the man re-embodied to a new and just as faithful
Not in the
man,
Christian
perhaps?
one,
Or
no. No, in
but
the
I mean, is
Christian
that the
one, it was literally
contention?
like,
I'm not taking a side on it. I mean, is that the contention that is being
no,
put
in the Christian
forward?
one, it's basically like you're not saying that it wasn't saying that it was like him coming back again, like him
Yeah.
being the same person. It was like him coming with that same energy, that same spirit, that same ambiance, if you will. Not so much like, oh,
Okay.
you are Elijah the prophet. He was like saying, oh, you're acting like Elijah the prophet. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
that's how I came off in the conversation in the scriptures that I read. I went every scripture they look up. I got a Bible too, and every version of Bible I got it in my house just to be able to cross reference everything because that's kind of person I am. I'll go down the rabbit hole, and
Yeah.
all of them say the same thing. Basically, he came in that same spirit. It says spirit. It doesn't say that he came back. That John the Baptist is Elijah the prophet. It says he came in the spirit of Elijah the prophet. So it was kind of
Yeah.
like, man, you're now bending that idea. Whereas, like we were saying, like if your soul is inhabiting something else, then that would be the transmigration. But if
That
you're
would be transmigration of the soul.
right, if your
Yeah.
soul is now inhabiting something else, and your soul would be aware of inhabiting that other thing, whereas there is other
So,
forms of it that don't have that.
and what you're saying is that to read it, it really looks more like Plato taught in the line of Socrates, right? Like he
Yeah, I
came
mean,
with that
it's like,
energy. He took his teacher's energy and he brought it home. Why do we know about Socrates at all? The writings of Plato, right? Is that kind of like an
right,
analogy?
exactly.
Okay.
That'd be the closest analogy that I can, exactly pinpoint it to. It's one of those things where I feel like it's like, okay, you're acting like, or you're coming with this same, feelings and same fervor that he had, and it was just kind of misconstrued and misinterpreted to where it didn't sound like that. You know what I mean?
That is interesting, especially because I don't know personally of too many of the Christian people in my life that I know who believe any kind of a reincarnation. That just seems opposite of what their Christian beliefs usually
It's
are,
so
right?
few and far between. Yeah, because you have your resurrection and you have the hope that a lot, 80% of Christians believe that you have the hope of going to heaven or the wish that you don't go to hell. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
reincarnation is not a thing. It's not something that you look forward to because you don't want to come back to this situation again on earth. You're looking for something better when you leave. You're looking for a transmigration of
Isn't
your soul
limbo isn't
into
limbo
a
the alternative though?
not in
Sorry to cut you off.
Christianity.
I feel like
No,
a jerk.
not
No,
in
right?
Christianity. That's
They
not
don't
a
have a
thing.
limbo or a
No, there's no
purgatory? No?
limbo.
Okay.
No, I mean in some Catholicism you can have purgatory, but there's a lot of like
Yeah.
spin-off sects, sects.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Yeah, there's a lot of that where there is actually
I'm
that,
sorry for
but
cutting you off.
very no, it's okay. It's very few and far between.
I think that they probably the least developed of reincarnation ideas be Christian, because I know that when I was doing my research, um, anytime someone who was Christian who somehow was involved, most times they were very, in the beginning or even throughout the experience, they seemed to be very opposed to just the idea that they have to be involved in it at all. But
Well, you
it
got
was
to think too, in the first and the sixth century, that was something I was reading. They made it literally heresy for you to believe in reincarnation, where if you believe that, you were going against the church and you needed to be killed. They would burn you at the stake and be like, "Here, prove your point. If you believe you're right, you'll be back, right?
did
Because you know you're going to be reincarnated. So if we burn you, it's okay. You'll be back." And they would just set you and your family on fire.
did the followers of Sol Invictus preach reincarnation? Do you know? That's one thing I don't know.
No,
And
I
I'll
don't know if
admit,
they do.
why
That's interesting.
why do I even know so much about Sol Invictus at all? Yeah, again, thanks Ridley Scott. You piqued my interest. That Raised by Wolves show. It's perfect. Yeah, and so it really seems like there were two monotheistic religions, and I don't know too much about Sol Invictus, but I was wondering if that was because that's around the same time that they were
Not that I
purging
know of.
that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Interesting.
I didn't do any research on that part.
See
One thing
here.
I did notice too, like even during the Crusades, like when a lot of the Christians were going up against the Persians and the Indians and stuff like that, they were battling them and saying that they are one of the hardest soldiers to defeat because they weren't afraid of death.
Mm-hmm.
They just believed that they would come
Yep.
back and do it again. So they weren't coming out in armor and all this stuff and worried about it. They would just throw bodies at you and just keep throwing soldiers at you until your army or your whatever gave up and was tired, because it's like, Jesus, these people do not fear dying. They're not worried about coming back or if their family's going to get taken care of, because they believe in reincarnation, whereas the Christian soldiers believe that they were fighting for God's side. So everything we do, it's okay that we die because we're going to get this in heaven, or we're going to be taken care of. You know what I mean? It's funny too, like both cultures, the Western and the Western and Eastern beliefs, they use that to control their soldiers and use that to control their people,
Mm-hmm.
their death beliefs, which is pretty frightening to think.
My first thought went to Norse and the Nordic people and the berserkers. You feed
Yeah,
this guy
yeah.
psychedelic mushrooms the whole boat ride over, and
Get them all
you also
hyped
have
up
been
and ready
teaching
to
him.
go
Yeah, and also everyone already knows that there's only one way to Valhalla. You got to die in battle, not an old man in
on
the
your
bed.
shield with your sword. Yeah.
Get out of here. Really? You died an old man in the bed? That was their attitude. Like, you die in battle and you make it to the highest heaven and get to drink mead with the gods. If not, they don't want your ass there,
Right.
right? Like,
Weakling.
if you were raised like that, that's another way of like, see, that's interesting because that's an afterlife ascension, heavenly ascension of a sort that also would, I mean, if you believed it, you'd fight like a demon too, right?
Well, you wouldn't if you're not afraid of dying. What stops you from
Yeah.
fighting everybody? You know what I mean? Like, what are you worried about? You got
Mm-hmm.
nothing to be worried about. You will go after every single person. You know what I mean? And kill what you need
Oh,
to
not
kill.
necessarily. If you have to be, if you have to be violent, if you realize you and no one else ever dies, then the reason for violence becomes ultimately unnecessary, doesn't it? Because what are you going to do? Kill somebody, and then you're just going to see them as a kid. Now you're an old man, they're young, and they go, "What up, you old bitch? Time for that
Well,
revenge." One
see,
of these stories
I'm
I
glad you
heard,
brought that
uh,
up, because
the,
your
the the
past
kid who lunched.
memories. No, not that guy. Not yeah, that was a
Mm-hmm.
good story too. I read that one too. The fighter pilot
I
kid.
have
Is
that
that
one
the one
on
you're
here
talking
too.
about? Oh, okay, good. Yeah, you have to bring that one up. But
The
like
fire. Oh, go on, yeah.
yeah, the
Got
one
excited.
story that they talk about is you having residual memories, or you having memories that
Mm-hmm.
linger over and then being erased
Mm-hmm.
when you're 7 years old, right? So
Yeah,
after 7 years, you lose a lot of your memories. That's why you don't have full on capabilities of memories. You only have residual stuff that lingers over, which feels like deja vu. You know what I mean? And so that was a kind of interesting thing that they talk about. Um, but if you think
and
about that,
that
then
is
you wouldn't see that as a kid unless you're like a little 7 year old, 6 year old kid, and you'd run up to that person. But in theory, the way generations work, you wouldn't be able to do that.
so the University of Virginia. This is where I spent most of my week studying as much of the information from here. It's Dr. Jim B. Tucker. He, I think it was 1998. Really? You only want to cry when I'm busy. Anyway, 1998, I believe it is, when he was asked to join the University of Virginia. Like they had some scientists who are working on why these kids are saying these things. Some kids say, oh dad, my other dad, he used to teach me fishing because we lived by the water. We lived close to the water. It's like my dad's name was Bob. It's like my name is John. No, not you, dad. My dad before. Weird stuff like that, right? And so they brought this guy on, this doctor, not sorry, this guy, Dr. Jim B. Tucker. He's a child psychologist because obviously, he's already proven himself at least there for the kids. That he seemed skeptical at first, but it's like what 24 years later, he's basically in charge of it now, and the things that he's no, I from what I've seen, it looks like he believes that there is a soul that goes onto another body, kind of like the body is a vehicle, is what I think. I haven't got to read all of his stuff yet because a lot of it is just citing the examples. So many examples of kids, and the only ones that he cited were ones that they actually were able to find a person that matched up with the description that's being given by this child. And it's always the thing that's important to note about the children who claim to be reincarnated, who don't say I was reincarnated. They just have these vague, well, the last mom and dad I had, very weird ways of just how else would you put it if you're still like brain forming, getting it. So they put it like, oh man, I got so excited. I got, man, sorry. They don't ever claim to be someone famous. They were never Cleopatra. They were not President Lincoln. I freed the slaves. They weren't, they never claimed to be a king, Solomon. No, that's only
These are the
grown
kids
ups
in
who
that
want
study.
attention. These are the kids that for 22 years, 22 to 24 years, Dr. Jim B. Tucker, and in his books, Before and Life Before Life, Eternal Life. I need to get the rest of these books. I've only been able to read excerpts, and again, most of them are examples of what the child says their experience is, these little bits and pieces that they can get out. And yeah, the kid who got a lot of study was, I'm trying to find his name again, but he was actually kind of a special case because they usually don't find people who have a memory, these kids who have a memory of a soul, of a life that far away. It always seems like you remember a life of someone who died like a year and a half to 4 years ago, just a city over, just some guy, and they'll remember it. They'll remember the people's names, and they'll remember their kids. They'll just, really, really weird things. There was a little girl who claimed to be, the reincarnation of a lady's son. And she was like, "Oh, when we see her, we need to get blue flowers because my mom likes blue flowers." And the parents indulged her. They went all the way to the town, and this lady's like, "Oh, hello." She goes, "There's a sign that says go around the back," and the little girl's like, "We have to go around the back to get in." And then the lady's like, "Oh, hello, what you doing?" "Oh, no one's brought me blue flowers since my son passed." It's like weird shit, you know what I mean? And the one kid who is the most special example he was having night terrors. Now they sent in Dr. Tucker because, again, child psychologist. He's there mostly to help the children. They're they're acting in a way that resembles PTSD. You know, this kid had nightmares and deathly afraid of flight, and they found that every detail that he said matched up with the only pilot who actually died on like bombing Hiroshima, which is interesting. He actually was even giving the name of the wingman. You know, he's like, oh, and you know, Jim Taylor was there with me. That's all I know. And they look and they're like, okay, well, there were two pilots that went out to drop, you know, to one got shot down. The name is James. The kid's name is James. And he says, I'm James 3. And they said, what do you mean? Yeah, he was writing James 3 for all these pictures of like planes getting shot down, and you know, and he was having these violent nightmares. He was kicking. They said it was like a demon possession, and he was screaming, you know, going down, gonna hit the water, flight down. You know, this kid's like 3, 4 years old. I don't know. I didn't see any videos of
I
all
always
this
wonder,
stuff.
like, are these kids that like heard it on TV or heard a story, you know what I mean, and are now
It
reliving
was
it, or watched something on television, or heard their parents watching on television or radio back then, you know what I mean? I don't know when the study was done, but
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think that's kind of this one here comes from like an actual doctor. He vetted it. They made sure that they checked every which way. It was an obscure name. It was an obscure name of a person who was never recovered, you know, from all these years
I mean,
ago.
you
And
would think that he was pretty well known if he was bombing Hiroshima. You know what I mean? That all those pilots were
well, as a
considered like top
psychologist
notch
too,
heroes. You know what I mean?
you know, they vet the whole family. They vet the whole family. You know, it's weird stuff that leads you. I mean, I think that if you're sending after 24 years of them having just the one doctor, they must have been doing research into these kids well before, you know, they brought on a child psychologist. But in the 24 years I think he's been doing it, you know, he's only putting forth, he said he goes and he sees a lot more than he talks about, but the ones he's putting forth, like he's done his vetting. The parents were freaked out. The parents were even like, look, we're Christian, we don't believe in this stuff, this is really bothering us, but our kid is screaming about dying every night and jerking, and he says he lost his leg, this all this, like, they're like, we don't believe in this. Like a lot of the things that the Dr. Tucker talks about, you know, are American cases with people who they don't know what else to do. They, again, they're Christian, they don't even believe this, but they need to help their kid and they don't know where else to turn. What do you do? You know,
When was that study done?
it's ongoing. It is
Oh,
an ongoing, University of Virginia, the Division of Perceptual Studies. They have, I mean, they have the biggest department. They do a study of near death experiences, reincarnation, mind body relationship. They've got some interesting stuff there. I mean, the books that they're putting out, it is. I wanted to get with you and send it to you, but I thought maybe you were gonna, maybe you should. I want it to be a surprise, like see if like where you come from in this. But
yeah,
man,
fresh on the podcast, man.
I I I basically was all UVA. I mean, just it was impressive. I mean, if anything, but again, yes, these kids, they seem to lose their memory. You know, they you know, for the most part now it's really hard to back up a kid who, okay, I'll give you that one where maybe they hear about the only pilot who died. Okay, what about a kid who says, I I'm from, you know, I'm from the other side of town, and my wife and her name's Rachel, and you know, or a little girl who's so nervous if her kids are okay. A little 3-year-old girl who's so nervous. No, you don't get it. My kids, they don't they don't come visit me anymore. Not since I came to this family. Like real genuine concern. and they take the names, they research it, and they find that there actually was someone who died maybe a city over, or and I mean, how does a kid learn so many weird details? How do they know, like, oh yeah, how do they know to call, if it was me, a little kid walking up to you and calling you E-Train, E-Mode. Imagine that, little kid walking up to you and being like, E-Mode, Chanticleer, I don't know what else to say. It's me. It's Jason Kaplan. I mean, if a little 2-year-old kid said, what else do you say? Elgin, if a little kid comes up to you and says Chanticleer, and yes, for the fans out there, and I hope there is one, Chanticleer is from Rockadoodle. Don Bluth was king. Light me up. This is my hill.
Change my mind.
Change my mind.
Speaking of change my mind. One of the research things that I did too was about this doctor, Brian Weiss, in 1988, and in 2013 he was on Oprah. But in 1988 he wrote a book. You read about that one? That was great.
I did. His
Many Lives, Many Masters.
Like
I actually
the woo woo.
No. This one's pretty interesting.
I thought so.
This is the one that wrote the book about Many Lives, Many Masters, where he had one case. This lady Catherine, and I'll just give it a synopsis of it because I don't want to ruin the book. But he is a psychiatrist, and he was helping this lady with her fears and with her different debilitating stuff that she had going on. She wanted help with it. So he was using hypnosis, and he started using hypnosis with her after like a year and a half of research with her. And then they were working on the fear one day. The fear of water was her big one. And he put her under hypnosis and she became another person. So he was like, what? Is this lady have, multiple personalities? What's up with her? And she was like, no, I was someone else. When you put me under hypnosis, I remembered that I was her, and I could remember why I was afraid. She died in like a tidal wave or a tsunami is what her belief was. And that's why she was afraid of water. And so he was like, yeah, right. Because of his academia and his belief, and he's a Christian too. So he was like, no, that's impossible. That's crazy. So what he ended up doing was putting her back under and then making her relive all this stuff and recounting her everything she could remember, every single thing that she could remember. And she basically recounted almost a whole life story about who she was, where she lived, kind of, what she was wearing, what she did, how she died. And that's why she had all these weird fears, because like she had PTSD, basically, like you were saying, because she was afraid of these things because she had already relived them. And then he went and back and found a person basically who, found a person that was basically who she said she was, and she died in a tidal wave.
Yep.
And her whole city was killed. And he's like, wow, the story matches up. That's pretty interesting. And how would she know that? This lady's not a history buff or anything like that. So it was a pretty interesting story to read. And I actually was going to buy his book on Audible. You can buy it on Amazon, by the way. It's only like $15.
Yeah, I also, that is exactly what Dr. Jim B. Tucker looks like. He's got a lot of examples just like that. There's no way that you would have heard about this person. You know what I mean?
There is some other ones.
Just some random person in the town over. I mean, it just, and especially.
Well, I mean, some of it is random. Some of it is like people that were, not notated, but people were in a big important part, not like super famous, but a big important part of history or something like that. Like there's this kid in 1994. He was also on Oprah, funny enough, where this story is an interesting story too. He's writing a book right now.
Sorry.
He's a little kid. He was like 13 or 12 back then. And in 94. And they thought he had multiple personality because he was telling his mom and dad that he died and he was a Civil War soldier. So he had this whole story, right, that he believed. So his mom and dad were like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send you to a therapist. The therapist believed him. The therapist was like, draw everything, write everything down. I'm going to have someone sketch it out to the best of their abilities. So that way we can see and kind of get an idea of what you think is happening. So they did. They even had like an artist
Okay.
rendering. Even Oprah had him do it too, and they got a full on like artist rendering of what he believed happened. He got shot in the wrist, and he was taken to the hospital camp. He described how the camp was. They found pictures of how camps looked. It was very much like that. And then the other part of it, and this is the whole Horcrux, I guess I would call it, of the story
The
was this
Horcrux.
this kid was a little white kid from Virginia, and he was reincarnated, and he was a black soldier in the Civil War.
Wait. All right. Here's the thing. Here's the
I
only
thought that would
reason.
get you.
No. I don't like that one because one, it's been a lot of times that they use that picture of that guy, and you know better than me, I'm sure. Come on, you know that picture has been used out of context for 200 fucking years. You know what I mean?
Man,
Like,
this story is pretty interesting. So I don't want to disprove him because you know me, but prove me wrong always, and I'll believe it. But they
I
went
I
back and
I
they
want to see it. Yeah,
yeah, you have to read this
go on.
story or
Sorry,
look it up from you
I
can
will. I
YouTube it
will.
too. It's on there. They go back and they find this area where he was. They took a historian. They found the rock that he was saying he was hiding behind. They found the tree line that he said he was taken through to go to the medical tent where they found medical stuff. They literally like dug up the ground, found this medical stuff that was there that he said that they buried when he was like shot in the wrist the first time, because he got shot in the wrist and then later died, got shot on the battleground and died. But then the most interesting part is they found out that there was only like 4 black soldiers in this platoon in
Yeah.
that area, and guess how one of them, or guess what happened to one of them? You
Well, I
guessed
mean,
it, shot in
obviously,
the
yeah,
wrist
I
and
already
died.
yeah.
Because he doesn't know his name. He couldn't remember any of that, but that's how that person died from infection from a shot in the wrist, and then later got shot anyway and died. But it's like, man, that's pretty wild. Like, how would this kid know this no-name soldier essentially from the Civil War
Yeah.
time? You know what I mean? Which is pretty
Yeah,
interesting that they try to say like that is proof that there is reincarnation, but it's like, I don't know. Maybe that's proof that they're spirits, or proof there's something else. I don't know. You know what I mean?
well, I mean, I kind of think, and again, like I said, I've I'm very fascinated by the idea of reincarnation, and I named this episode, named it Reincarnations Variations, and I named it that way because
Yeah, man.
as long as I've been looking at reincarnation, I see basically 3 major differentiations or 3 major concepts of reincarnation. There's the one that we mentioned before. There's the transmigration of the soul. There is, I am an eternal spirit. When I pass, the spirit goes out and who knows, has some good old times before finding another vessel, I guess, to inhabit. And, luck of the draw,
Yeah, another
hopefully next
life
time
of
I'm one of the
something,
kids
right?
with the memory. Yeah. Now the other kind, the other kind of reincarnation that is one that comes up, and there's the story of, I believe it was the Inuit man who he gave the watch to his son. Now this one is genetic memory. Now this is something that I brought up a couple times. The idea of the dragon being an amalgamation of the cat, the giant lizard, and the eagle. And so it is a picture in the back of every human's brain, genetic memory of what are the major indicators of a predator to a soft
predator or
pink
something
creature
frightening.
like us.
Right.
And so we have this picture of a perfect predator in our mind that is as it's as what's the word that they use for instinct? It's instinctual, and the next level of that, I would think, would be genetic memory, where in the case of the But there is also the concept of the reincarnation with the spirit as well, because the kid seemed surprised. He just acted like the dad. The dad said to his son, "Here, take my watch. I'm not going to be around much longer, and I will be coming back as your son. I'm going to come back as your son." You know, I mean, fucking Babe Ruth pointing out into the field, right? And
Creepy
then,
though,
the
man.
dad
That's
was a
creepy.
fisherman. That's creepy too, right?
Well, that's creepy. I
Sure.
think to
I
tell
mean,
your family
honestly,
that, like, Jesus,
no,
I
that's
wouldn't want my
no, that's what
father.
I
I
mean.
wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't want my father to come back as my son. Like, that's insane.
Here's one thing: if my father is going to come back as my son, I don't want him to look me in the eyes and be like, "It's me, it's
Me, your
me,
daddy.
it'll be me." But yeah, so he says, then his dad went out fishing, didn't come back, so they declared him lost at sea and passed. A couple months later, son is born. When the baby's one or something, randomly, I guess the baby just goes, "Huh. When I was your age, I used to change your diapers."
Nope.
I don't know how old the kid was supposed to be. I don't know. Something along that effect.
Why did
I'm
we
just
move into a
saying. But
two-story,
then.
Papa? Why is the bathtub full of cold water? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
I'm gonna
That's
wash your
funny.
face. Just your face.
Just your face. Oh man. Well, anyway, then one day they brought, they were looking through all the jewelry that I guess they'd collected over the years, and the kid walks in and he sees the watch that you know the
Don't
dad
tell me
said,
they
and the
gave
kid
him
just
the
goes,
test like from what's that
"The
movie
Dalai Lama."
with Eddie Murphy,
From
Golden Child.
Oh, the Golden Child. Well, yeah. Well, they took that from
Pick your
from
pick
from
your
the way of the
items.
Dalai Lama.
Right, right,
So,
right.
well, that's part of, the Dalai Lama. That part of Buddhism. No, actually, I mean, from what I understand, like hardcore deep Buddhism, there's not really much. There honestly, a lot of the reincarnation in Buddhism is kind of added in later on, but like the
Yeah,
cardinal
it didn't come
tenets
in.
of
Yeah, in the beginning. Yeah, yeah.
the cardinal tenets of Buddhism really just kind of talk about, you know, you're gonna get what you give,
It's kind of
right?
karmaic. You know what I mean? I don't know if
It's
that's
pure
I don't know if
karma.
that's an I don't
It's
know if that's an exact word, but yeah, it's very much
well,
karma related. You know what I mean?
it's
But I'm
karma.
sorry, I
Absolutely,
threw
it's
you off
karma
track.
related.
You're talking about
No,
that
it's
kid
okay.
picking up jewelry. Go back to that story. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. A kid picking up jewelry. Oh,
You're
well,
saying
yeah.
you're
So the kid
the
saw the watch,
kids.
and yeah, the kid saw the watch and ended up saying, "Oh, that's my watch." And they were like, "What?" Which, I mean, again, you can take things as many different ways as you want, but there are some odd odd things that happen. So
Yeah, I mean,
that
there was
one
one
fascinated
too.
me too.
There's another one too that I was reading up on. This kid who he believed since he was like a little kid, little baby, he loved planes, right? So everybody like me, I'm a planes kid too. Loved them. Always picked the same style of planes, same colors for some reason, which their parents just chalked it up to, oh, whatever, kid just likes blue planes, no big deal. You know what I mean? Who cares? And then eventually, when he could talk, he starts talking about him flying a plane and being a fighter pilot, and he's like, yeah, I was a
Yes.
fighter. He's telling his family, like, I was a fighter pilot. This was my name. My name is this. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like,
I flew a
he was telling them,
Corsair.
like, yeah, I want to be called this. I flew a Corsair. Like, we've never taught you that. Well, obviously you don't know everything your kids are watching on TV, but they're like,
Mm,
we don't know, you know what I mean? We don't know where you heard that from, or how you could have heard that. You mean, kind of a thing. It
yeah.
was a pretty interesting story. And then they went and
That
looked
is
up
the
the
one. Yeah.
name. Yeah, they went and looked up the name that he was saying, and he also put a number on his planes, and always talked
Yes.
about the plane shooting him down, how it was painted. And they
Mm-hmm.
went back and did the
Yep.
research and found out that yes, there was a guy with the name, the pilot, the number, and he got shot down by a
Mm-hmm.
Japanese pilot with that coloration, which was a rare coloration for their fighter planes at the time. It was a pretty interesting
I believe
story
this
that
is the I believe this is the same story that we were talking about, the same kid. I think we just were reading different articles about it. I'm serious. I think that I think
Could have
this is the
been, could
same
have been,
one.
yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah. I
think
mean,
so.
Corsair, that was a big thing in it. Corsair, he was,
The
and they were
Corsair.
like shocked
Yeah.
by that because, first of all, French word kind of a thing. Like, how would he even know that? You know what I mean? And
How
he
would he
was,
even know that, right?
yeah, he like never
Now the
heard
other
that. They
thing
don't
too,
watch war movies, all that sort of stuff. So that was pretty
well, my
interesting.
favorite detail from that is because of all the plane stuff, I think that his dad thought that maybe he was fascinated by planes, so he took him. So they actually people tried to throw this in their face. They said, "Oh, well, you took him to like a museum, and it was showing
Museum,
off
right?
World War II things, right?" Now, and they said, "Oh, and you went back because the kid wanted to keep going back to the same kind of plane." So they investigated to see if, and the guy, like, I guess the dad had the ticket. Like, no, we went on this day. There was no Corsair there. Like, yeah, we were looking at World War II planes. We did not see a Corsair. I didn't see. And then they went back. The doctor Jim Tucker, he went back and did research. They did not have a Corsair when they went. Like, how the kid fucking hear about a Corsair? You know what I mean? What do I think when I hear a
I mean,
Corsair?
yeah,
I think it's something
it's
from
one
a
of those
video
things.
game. You know,
It's one of those
I
things where I'm
think of
like,
a.
well, how much could he read? How much does he know? Like, there's a lot of information in museums and stuff like that. Like, if the kid could read or if not, like when I was 6, I could read. You know what I mean? I could read and write when I was that young. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I also believe that yes, there are sometimes there has to be some sort of like residual. I don't believe in reincarnation exactly to that degree, but like I believe that you can have some sort of um not calling, but some sort of like feeling towards one specific thing or towards one feeling of something else. You know what I mean?
And I think that you just gave me the perfect segue into what is in my many fucking crazy years of being too interested in this. This is the third kind of reincarnation. So far, there's transmigration of the soul, what a genetic memory, and then there is the collective unconscious. So the collective unconscious, the Akashic record, however you want to think of it. Um, Now, if there are any other Star Trek fans out there, we're going to be referencing Deep Space Nine here. We're going to the Gamma Quadrant, and we're talking about
Jump through the
we're
wormhole with
talking
us.
about the liquid pool of living beings. Now, if Odo were to join the liquid pool, would he disperse evenly and become one? And so whatever amount comes up, see, the thing that he was afraid of was becoming one and joining the collective unconscious. That is the representation of collective unconscious. He would pass in, and then you take an, so if you put one drop of water into a bucket, you'll never get that drop.
It all
back.
becomes the water. Yeah. In theory, you can never have just that drop. Yeah, just that drop.
And so what you do is, in the idea of the soul again, I guess, but this one is more of a variable. It's a modular. It's anyway, so you take the same amount. How much does it cost to make a soul? You take that scoop out and you pour it in the human, and there is bits of every other. So I guess, and that one is one of the most fascinating ones, because the collective unconscious basically would be all of us tapped into, and again, not like it's partitioned back out, but it's almost like we are receivers. Again, this comes back down to the simulation. It's as if we are receivers, and this collective unconsciousness is sending out the ability to comprehend. And sometimes you get flashes of other people's lives. Sometimes you have a memory of a pilot from World War II, and sometimes you remember how bad that you got beaten back, in 1940s, when you were fighting for equal rights, but before anyone knew people were fighting for equal rights. And then sometimes you might remember, storming Normandy or something, like all of these things, But what if it's just like weird flashes? What if it's
But
flashes?
see, that was the one that I did the less research on, in my opinion, just for the same reasoning. Like you're saying, like, okay, once you put that drop in the bucket and then you try to take that amount of drop back out to make another human, you're mixing with everyone else's. So you wouldn't, if you believe in reincarnation, in that theory, it's like you wouldn't have one person's memories. You'd have to have multiple persons' memories, right?
I think again that this would be the option that lends credence to why most of us have no memory, because if I am one bit of data from 100 billion other creatures, then I'm not going to be able to rebuild the hard drive of any one of them. Maybe some kids get lucky and get a couple extra bits and they're able to put together a couple bits. That's really the idea. Maybe some
Right,
people are
right.
able to
I
access a
mean,
bit
but
more of
is
one
it
or the other.
limiting those bits to just like say like we're saying like, okay, well, that kid who was a fighter pilot, he got more of the fighter pilot's bits than everything else in him, right? He got more of that person's soul in theory, right? Is what we're saying. It's like, well, how can how could that happen
Not
if
necessarily,
if
but
if it's like, hey, you get dropped into this bucket or you get dropped into this consciousness and everyone dissolves into everyone. uh, is it
but
equally, or is it more of a saturation kind of a thing? Like, you know what I mean? That kind of led me to like, I don't like the idea of that, just because it was like, you're telling me if you drop, drop something in there and then, or your soul goes in there and you become one of everyone, and this consciousness is always ever growing. Like, how are you able to get too much of one and not of the other?
and the way I think of it, and again, because there's no one way, and I'm not
Oh
putting
no, there's
forward
millions.
any one of these as the one that I think is like how it happens. If it does, I'm fascinated and I want to learn. But my my investigations have led me to think that the the one that's like the collective consciousness, it's not so much like you put a drop in, it mixes, then you take a drop out. It's more like the internet in a way. It's more like an internet where you and I are we're a desktop in a home somewhere. We are dialed in, we are always connected, and if you lose connection to the internet, well, you're not going to be watching a show or listening to a podcast. You're not going to have that. Now,
You become like your
maybe it's a little bit
independent self.
no. There's no the consciousness is almost like a streaming service. So I mean, if you have your consciousness signal interrupted, you go into a coma, is what I'm thinking. I mean, one example, I could be wrong. We can
Oh, I get what you're
make so
saying.
many
I get what you're saying.
permutations on this. So we're receiving a signal, right? Now maybe some people are tuned and end up picking up. And again, now I also kind of have the idea about my idea about ghosts, that I don't think that ghosts are disembodied spirits. I think that ghosts are like a psychic footprint, like a spiritual footprint on a place where something happened. Like, again, I'm saying Normandy, lots of bad stuff. The places in Germany, places in America where horrible things happened, and that's why I think that, like, people say that they always see the ghost. Oh, the ghost, she always takes the same path. If it's always the same, that's not what any creature does. No creature
Yeah,
does
a
that.
lot. Yeah, not complete repetition. Maybe habit, but not complete repetition. And even habits, you're
Yeah,
doing it slightly different every time.
exactly.
But
And
one
so
thing
to
I was
me,
thinking
it kind of,
too, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. No, 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 no. Go on. I was just going to basically repeat myself.
Oh, okay. I was
Excited.
actually
You know how I
talking. I
like
was
to do
talking.
it.
Right.
Drive the
I was
point
talking
home.
with. I was talking with my daughter about this. Actually, this subject. She's younger,
Mhm.
in seventh grade, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder what you believe," because in my family, well, in my household, like I don't make them choose to believe anything. You have to learn it and make the truth your own. You know what I mean? And go through
Uh,
all the different iterations of spirituality in any sort of a way, if you need that sort of a thing. But anyways, I digress. I was talking with
yeah.
her about it, and she was like, "Yeah, I believe in reincarnation, but I believe in it in that when you die, you pass on all your information, and all your information goes into something else." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean, baby? Like, what do you mean by something else?" She's like, "Well, not so much that it goes into some other person, but like it goes out and then other people can read your information. And the people that die and the people that have really bad experiences, their information is so traumatizing that that's why we see it as ghosts. And I was like, wow, okay. So that information
I'm not joking. Yes, that's
is
exactly what I think.
incomplete, right? That information is incomplete,
Mm-hmm.
so therefore it cannot be shared with everyone. So it's basically like an error code, and it's left out for all of us to process until we can complete that information. I was like, man, like I was blown away by it. I'm like, I'm shocked that she was able to explain it so well. You know what I mean? First of all, because she's my total
I've got
science
goosebumps.
geek girl,
I've
you know,
got
she's awesome. And
goosebumps right now.
that was
That's
such a cool way
hilarious.
such a cool way to understand something like that.
That's
That first of
amazing.
all, like I don't believe in, so I don't know. I never taught her that. So I'm like, where are you getting that information? You know, I mean, like
Yeah,
that's just
exactly.
pulled out of her,
No, I know
out of
you.
her
I've known you
beliefs
for
and
a
out
while.
of her.
How
Yeah,
did she come up with?
it's just crazy, you know. It's something that she just pulled out of, you know, out of the ether, so to speak, or out of where she says like her information comes from. And I'm like, I can't
And
discount it because it makes some sense when you say it like that, you know.
and that's kind of what I think. That is exactly basically how I tried to figure out my way of wording it. It's as if, like, yeah, we should be able to read the information. It's almost like man, she put it really well. She put it really well.
It's almost
Like
like she
with
was saying, like, no matter what you do, like your information, you're always receiving information. Information being like, okay, I see the color red. It's red to you, or in your mind, it's red. Why is it red? Because everyone else before you said it was red. And I was like, holy crap, like that is such a like pivotal thing to think about, that when you're a kid, when you're taught red, you're only taught red because someone else told you it was red.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how many times before you have you been taught red, and who came up with red? You know what I mean? And how did that happen? Like that's such an interesting way of putting it. The other way I was thinking too, there's a Indian doctor, Verdant Vershan, and he talks about reincarnation being like people using their souls or their spirits, um, and the body being like clothing, where you can slough it off when you die, and then you go into another body. And the reason why you're going into another body is because the clothing or your body is no good anymore. It's gone bad. Just like you would take off bad clothes or holy clothes, you put on better
Okay.
clothing, and so that way you can constantly be basically teaching your example or your way of life to everyone else. That's why karma came into, you know, the belief of everything you do better, you need to do, or everything you do, you're gonna have a better reincarnation, because it's gonna teach you to do better, which made me start to
Karma.
go ahead. I was gonna say, which made me start to think like, okay, karma is a lot of based on like tit for tat kind of a thing, which I don't like when you start talking about like death or anything like that, because then it becomes the whole like hell and heaven for me. So it's like, okay, if you're doing something bad, you're gonna end up becoming back as something bad, or you're gonna have one belief is you're going to have bad abilities, is what they say. I forget the person's name, but he was an Indian yogi, and he talked about like people who come back blind were people that couldn't see the future or couldn't see um, positively in their life. So the less positivity you have, the more likely you are to come out blind. Or people that were lazy or didn't want to do anything, they usually come back malformed and have bad leg conditions or stuff like that. Like that kind of made me like, man, I do not like that idea. It kind of makes you think like you're punishing yourself. And if you're only doing good things for the sake of getting something good, are you really doing good things?
Exactly. I agree with that entirely. That is actually something that I've spoke with my mother about. I said to her, the reason why I don't think that there would ever be a God write down a book is because I think that that would be missing the point. I think that the people who they don't do bad things because they're afraid of going to hell. I put it this way, like, and it says so in all the books too. It's not just about just doing the right things. It's about like the transgressions of the heart. It's about what do you, if you can't stop thinking about wanting to fuck your neighbor, pardon my French, then you know what? That's you, man. Then you're the guy who's dwelling on it.
Well,
That's its
yeah,
own issue
yeah.
in itself. Acting on it is another thing.
And
But
some of the
then the way
things,
they
like,
put
even
that,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no worries. I was just like, oh, how did it go? With those, oh damn. Mm-mm-mm. But karma, I was trying to say, karma isn't necessarily. It wasn't directly related to reincarnation until later on. Karma really is just it's the main tenet of karma is just something simple about like, does everyone understand that if we're all nice to each other, then the world is better? That's really like the main thing. And then it did get built on like, well, yeah,
Well,
if you're bad, the bad things keep happening to you, then you're bringing it on yourself. You're focused on bad, bad comes at you. You're the one aiming there. You're the one
yeah, I
aiming in
mean,
negative places.
karma did come into the Hindu religion a little bit later, but it was sort of in the beginning of it. But it is kind of tied into the reincarnation, because they even talk about, like, if you're so evil of a person, you won't be reincarnated, or you'll be
I
reincarnated as
mean,
something so lowly that you're almost non-existent. You know what I mean? And it
but
ties in so hard
yeah.
that it's like, the whole idea is, if you're not having this good life, well, first of all, it's not only good deeds and stuff like that. I shouldn't say that. If you're not having a good life and you're not trying to love and show love to everyone else, then you're
Mhm.
less likely to have a good reincarnation. You're less likely to have another good life, a good body. Not saying you won't, it's just saying you're less likely to. So it
Yeah.
behooves you, let's say, to do the right thing, to be the right
Behoove.
person. Yeah, you know what I mean? Which to me makes it like, man, you're either you're living in fear and doing things because of this fear, or you're doing it because it's a
Yeah.
good thing. That's why, like, the Buddhist teaching doesn't have karma. Karma is a complete Indian word. It's basically,
Mhm.
you're supposed to love and share your love with everyone in the Buddhist world, like that, or the Buddhist
Mhm.
religion. It has nothing to do with, oh, if you
Buddhist and
come
Hindu are
back.
separate, by the way.
Exactly, yeah. Buddhist and Hindu are
Yeah.
completely separate. Both
Very
Eastern.
different reincarnation ideas.
Yeah, very, very
Very
different
different
actually.
reincarnation ideas.
Because, well, first of all, most of the Indians believe you'll come back as a human, another human form, whereas the Buddhists believe you can come back as anything, a tree, you know what I mean, anything really. So that's a pretty interesting one too. That's one that I'm
That's
like, they believe, everything is conscious, everything is alive, which we believe everything is alive, but maybe not
yes.
to the degree of sentientness. You know what I mean? But it's alive. So you can come back as a tree. Hopefully you come back as a big, proud, beautiful tree, or you can come back as a withered one that someone cuts down, which
No, no.
sucks. You know what I
If you
mean?
come, you don't come back as a tree. You'd have to come back as a seed and grow into the tree and see. Like there's a lot of like things that are like tantamount and stuff. With
Well, they don't even
Buddhism, I'll
talk
tell you,
about that. That's the craziest part
I've
too.
always yeah.
They don't talk about,
Buddhism
like,
takes a lot of
you
things
coming back
for
as a
granted.
baby, or yeah, they don't, exactly. It's kind of like the whole Star Wars entrance. It's like, they don't tell you about you coming back as a seedling or as a baby deer. They're like, oh, you come back as a deer. It's like, well, do you know you're a deer now? Are you coming back as the same age? Are you coming back? They don't even talk about it. It's just kind of left up there.
I, I guess for me, the way I think, and I hope that I wouldn't be misquoting. And again, please like or I mean, go ahead and like comment if you think I'm, send us a line if I'm saying this wrong. I don't mean it to be, but as far as like a Buddhist mindset, I don't think that the original ideas ever had any details about really like what exactly happens if this then that. It's not like coding if this then that. it was it was stuff to teach you how to be a good person here and now and have a good life. And and people started imagining their own things and adding to it, but the core ideas don't go into it because that's not the path to happiness. Focusing on the afterlife all day every
Yeah,
day
worrying about the
takes away
past
from
is
you
dragging
living
from the
your
future.
life.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
worrying about the future is taking away from your present. I mean, worrying about the past or the future. So like to know exactly what happens, well, I mean, I kind of
It'd
take
be
it like
useless.
that. It would be useless. That takes away from the mystery, the last true adventure. What if anything happens, right? To have that knowledge would be skipping to the back of the book. Hey, guess what? Poirot figures it out. Really?
Right,
The detective figured
exactly.
it out, huh?
You know
Oh,
what's funny
well, I guess I
about
don't need
doing
to read the book.
exactly? That's what I was gonna say. You know what I was thinking is funny about doing all this research? What it did for like my beliefs or my faith is like made me like even more so like I really don't want to know. Like I don't want to
Yeah,
know if there is reincarnation. I don't want to know if there is a heaven or hell. I don't want to think that these are options for me because I feel like if I am doing what I'm supposed to in life, it'll be good because my life
yeah,
was good.
exactly.
My life is good,
That's
and no matter what,
that's all I
the
think,
end
man.
result will be good. Like if I'm good to other people and I'm trying to unify people to be friends and everyone around me to be loved, you know what I mean, and show my love and show how much I can help. And you know, I'm the kind of person because of my father, like if I have some, you're
Yeah,
gonna try a piece. You know what I mean? Like if I
I
have, even
understand.
if I don't have enough and I think it's great, you need to have some with me. I need you to share in this awesomeness. That's how I have always been raised. And it's a funny thing to think that like now that I'm, you know, as old as I am, like I see people that are like, oh man, don't eat my last French fry. I'm like, dude, in my household, it was like, here's the last French fry. Let's cut it up 20 ways where everybody gets just enough to touch their tongue for no reason, not because we can't get another French fry, but just to show our gratitude for everybody to be able to have this French fry. Everyone gets the last fry. You know, that's how my dad's
Yeah.
mindset was like, everyone needs that last fry. Everyone needs the last amazing taste of something or the last thing, you know, the last little bit of love. Like that was my dad's like philosophy in life was if you have, you share. If you don't have, hopefully someone else shares for you. You know,
It's
and
hard to
that's
sell when us kids are always so damn selfish, honestly, right? Like,
it really is.
how
Yeah,
do you
you're
get them?
right.
It's not easy. I mean, we're just naturally selfish. I don't mean that as like
Yeah,
a
humans are naturally
you.
selfish. No, no,
Hell,
humans are naturally
me. You know
selfish.
what I mean? Yeah. Sorry, man, but fuck you. We're talking about me over here. All right. We're talking about selfish me.
Right? Exactly.
I, me,
It's funny
mine.
because when I was raising my kids, like me and my ex wife, we never let them say mine and like we never let them have a
Mm-hmm.
possession like words like that when they're
Yeah.
kids because then when they were growing up they would fight over stuff. But if all the toys were
Mm-hmm.
everybody's toys in the house, they never
Mm-hmm.
fought, and my kids never fought. My kids don't fight to this day because everything they have is each other's. Like you don't own anything. I bought it. It's
Yeah.
mine. You know what I mean? Like none of you guys bought it. So I have the receipt. You know what I mean? If anything, it would
Yeah.
have to be mine because I own it. So, and I'm willing to share it with you. So how much more should you be willing to share it with your brother or sister, you know? And that's just kind of like how I was laughing about reading this. Like, man, the reincarnation thing kind of it put me off thinking like I really don't want to know. And I hope we never figure it out because then people are going to try to scheme and do it the right way just to get their next better, you know,
Exactly.
reincarnation. And then what stops you from figuring out the code? You know what I mean? Like, oh man,
See,
if I do this
and
8,000
there's
things
the
just
problem with
right,
the human mindset.
exactly.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly how the humans think is I can scheme this game. I can be the best of the best to get the best, as opposed to just being like, just be good. You know what I mean? Be
Mm-hmm.
content in being the best that you can be for everyone else.
Like I was telling my mom, she's like, "Oh, I wish you would go back to church," and I was just like, "But I don't think that that's real." I was like, I don't think that if there was a God who wanted us to learn the lessons that are in that book, I don't think that He would have told us about the book. Why? Because then just like so many people, they're only doing good things.
Well,
Everybody sees them doing good things. So like the point is like now, like if your kids, like I asked my mom,
I kind of
if
disagree
I
with you on
still
that,
to
by the
this
way, but go
day,
ahead.
if you only clean your room because you'll get in trouble if you don't, and you still clean your room as an adult because you don't but no one bitching at me, everyone's bitching at me that I'm a dirty, no, then you still haven't learned the core lesson. The core lesson is being a clean person in itself is its reward. The value of being clean outweighs. How are we talking about this? That's what it is. The lesson is, why don't you want to have a clean home?
Well, here's the
Right?
thing, like
So
like you're saying, like, oh, I'm
if you're
sorry.
doing it out of fear, you've never learned a lesson. That's all my point. And so, like, I just think that if there's a God
Yeah,
who's
yeah,
smart
yeah.
enough, look, if I'm smart enough to come up with this concept, like, believing in anything, believing in, I come from an intelligent, spirit being 6,500 years ago, or a single cell 20 billion years ago. Neither of those have ever made me happy. So my idea of the Buddhist mindset is that don't focus on all that. Live a good life right now. You're good right now. You'll be all right. You'll be okay. That's how I
Well,
think of it. And karma just leads into that.
to
And
even
then you
to
can
that
add
end,
as
like you're
much as you
saying,
want.
yeah, well, to even to your end of what you're saying, like, I disagree with the whole thing. Like, why would a god make a book? Because first of all, the Buddhists have books, and you know what I mean. Like, everyone has a
Not
book, a
written by a
teaching
god,
from.
though. Never written by a god, though.
It's the Bible isn't written by God. No one ever said that, by the way. But that's
It
not a
was
thing.
inspired by him.
It's
No, I know that.
inspired
They
by
do say
God,
it
but
was
it's
inspired
not.
by him.
It's inspired by God, but it's also not anything that God said. It's always things that someone else it's a recount of someone
Again,
else's story. So if you think about this, listen to what I'm saying, and this will make sense to you. If you look at the Bible as a teaching of God, you're looking at the Bible incorrectly already. The Bible is a recount of a bunch of different stories in the belief of all that they believed in the same God, and
mm-hmm.
their happenings in their life in believing in God. Not saying that, hey, this the Bible is a black and white of how to do something. That is not what the Bible is. Even the Bible says
Yeah.
it is not a recount to do that, or an account to do that. It is literally just a bunch of stories of someone else who believes the same thing you believe, and this is how they lived back in that time, and their life was a lot more simpler than our time now, so therefore they had a lot less things to worry about. So it makes you be able to understand the teachings of the same belief that they believed. It's in the same idea that, hey, look, your parents tell you you clean your room, right? Well, why did your parents tell them to
Mm-hmm.
clean their room? Because their parents read, and their parents knew why to clean their room, because if you don't, it's nasty, you get ants and bugs and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all in a book somewhere. That's all written down from how many thousands of years ago. And someone just said, hey, you know what? We're going to teach this. This is our teachings. You know what I mean? And if they came out with a book of, funny enough, we'll just use your example, the book of room cleaning, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
it talked about, the prophet of bedding, the prophet of yada yada, and why he cleaned it. He believed that whatever. That's all that book would be. So to look at the Bible like it's such a black white manuscript or outline, it isn't. You know what I mean? It's not.
Mr.
That's all.
Clean crossed his arms so we wouldn't have to. Anyway,
You're right.
sorry.
The bald man.
It is written in the book of cleans. In the book of cleans.
You know what I mean? But that's kind
Chapter
of like the
1. No,
thing that's
I
interesting
agree.
too.
I agree.
Even with the Bible, like the Bible being there, it helps reaffirm like reincarnation to some degree, because it's like, hey, if you're saying that you're going to do good things and you go to heaven, so you have to die, right? In theory, to go to heaven. You can't live and go to heaven, right? That's a universal thing. I think everybody believes. So when you die, are you being
For
reincarnated
those
into
who believe in
heaven?
heaven,
Right? Right? For those who believe in
for
heaven
those
or
who believe,
hell,
for the ones
or
who believe in
hell,
heaven, yeah,
or hell, either
yeah. For
way.
people who believe in hell, too, sure, yeah. It's a point system. It's
Don't
got to be.
don't
There's no other way
well
of breaking it.
even if it is a point system, don't you have to die? And if you die, how are you going into something else? Are you going back into another body? Are you going back? Are you just taking your body with you? Or are you being reincarnated in hell or reincarnated in heaven? Can you use your earthly body in heaven? No, everyone believes you have to have an angelic form, yada, yada, right? Can, can you use your earthly body in hell? Yes, some people believe that because that's how you feel pain and get tortured, because, imperfect body, that's how you feel those things. In a perfect body, excuse me,
Yeah.
doesn't feel that way. So yes, you wouldn't need to in that theory, but still, if your body's here on Earth and everyone can see it, and at that point, how does your body go to hell? if you're still visible on Earth, unless it takes, well, we know it takes, you know, a good 100 to 200 years, right, for a body to fully decompose. Um, would at what point
This
you
getting
would
granular again.
I love that though. That I like to break things down to the simplest form. Like, okay, if you're believing that, then you have to also believe in this. You have to be able to say, okay, once your bones are dust, then you can they turn into dust form where you can go into hell and be tortured. You know what I mean? Or are you saying that you believe in reincarnation and now your consciousness is back in a new you body to be tortured or to be perfect in heaven? Like it's an interesting thing for me to think of, especially since like I don't believe in either heaven or hell in that idea that humans go there. So never have, you know, I mean, that's not how we were brought up.
I guess, I'll go on the record as I actually, my beliefs are also not even the way I was brought up. For the record, my mom would probably hate everything I say about what I believe, but me, I'm not worried about what happens in the future. I'm just going to try to be good as best I can. And then if there is a point system, if there is someone worried about it,
I bet I'm racking up points.
I bet I'm racking up points. And if I'm not,
that's how I look at it. Then, you know, I'm shooting free throws because I can't make the 3-pointer. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I like.
That's how I look at it. I'm doing layups all day long because I know I can get those easy good points, because if I'm doing good, we're gonna win the game. It's all about fundamentals. I can't dunk.
It's about
I can't do a cross.
Right?
You know what I mean? It's about the fundamentals. Fundamentals win games. Exactly.
Right. All right.
Wait, that's the Illuminati sign.
Phil Jackson. That there. Wasn't that? I thought that was the triangle. That was Phil Jackson's triangle. Okay. Yeah. Hey, everyone. We here at Nigh Midnite want to let you know that Phil Jackson was a great basketball coach. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is just truth.
Took a ragtag group of people and turned them into how many 10 championships? 11, something like that?
Yeah, well, I think he's got more rings than fingers.
Oh yeah, he'd have to carry them around in a satchel bag.
I bet
he has more
at the end.
He has more rings than he does. I want you to make teams he coached.
Exactly. I was gonna say, I bet like for the last one, he goes, well, he probably walked into the fitting room with all 10 others, and they said, oh, what are we gonna do for 11? And he says, I did my own measurements. Why don't you make it about 5.5 inches round?
No,
they said, Mr. Jackson. There you are. You get it now. Cock ring joke. Sorry.
You know what I was thinking? Right, he walks in and they go, Phil again? Oh my God. They're like, Phil, every time, dude.
At this point, they're just like, yeah, we've got you on record. We already know your side.
They're like, what day is it? Like, Phil's coming in. Phil's coming in next week, so we better make something nice for him.
You know how, like, after the Super Bowl, you can probably go find like $2 shirts that say that the other team won because they print up both, and then all right, and double production on the other one now, and then cancel the other one and
boxes.
Just ship those over, ship those boxes out, just
ship those to China. That's what they do. They ship them over, and then you see people wearing them in Thailand and some rice patty.
Mm-hmm. It's like those
shirts are reincarnated
over
shirts
there anyway. So like every year, like they would make a ring for Phil Jackson just in case, and then they'd go fucking like melt it down. They
pre-make it before the season starts.
Mm-hmm.
Like
before
put
the
this in Phil's size just to be safe, man.
Yeah, make one in Phil's size, and if
the rest of the team will figure it out.
Let's be honest. Yeah,
Phil's gonna get one
because they
Trust
were like,
me.
Yeah, because if he doesn't, that's just too unexpected to even try to account for now.
We'll give it to him next year. That's what they say. But but that's one thing I was researching too.
Change the stones out.
As far as change the stones. As far as reincarnation, like talking about karma, like sending your abilities over. So there was one. I'm trying to find the name. Anyways, it's non-consequential. This one professor talks about how if you're good in anything, so say you learn how to play music, right? and your ability
Yeah.
is you're really good at reading musical or music notes, excuse me, musical, reading
Okay.
music. You know what I mean? So when you pass away and you are reincarnated, your next life, you should have something to either do with music or something to do with what you were doing, your ability wise, your good abilities wise. And that is how he explained karma, which was even more interesting to me than how karma is normally said, just deeds and stuff like that and how you live your life. It was more about abilities. So say if you're just an evil person, right? And you're always doing evil things and hurting people, when you come back, you're gonna have malformations and stuff like that because
Hmm.
that's what you were good at. You were good at hurting and you were good at, you know what I mean? So then when you come back, you hurt. That's why you were hurting, because in your past life, you were only good at hurting other people. So now you're hurting. I was like, man,
Going
that's
back to
a
the yeah, sorry to cut you off at the end. University of Virginia. One of the interesting bits of information is um, that there will be birthmarks on children. Like if they claim to be so and so, that they're like, I remember my husband killed me, and he chopped off my arm, and that'll be the kid's explanation for their birthmark, that like all across their
oh
arm,
crazy.
right?
Okay.
Or uh there'll be a a birthmark on the front and a bigger birthmark on the back, exactly where the person's entry and exit wound were.
Huh. All right. Wow.
So, or there in India. In India, this is the one. This one's tough. This one I truly hope is not real. I mean, of all the things that we've been talking about, I would find absolutely any of these possibilities. If it turned out that this was the one, I could be just about okay with it, except for what I'm about to say here. This one bothered me a little bit. Um, in India, sometimes if someone is born with um, underdeveloped hands, let's say that their hands don't quite form, and this is really what they come out with, they will recount the tale of in their past life that they were horribly tortured and had their, and as they were being killed, they were being chopped. And horrible things that these people will claim happened in their past life that were so powerful, carried over into the next physical life. Again, if you're going to say that, okay, well, if you're going to try to say that the birthmarks can lend credence to indicator motive, I'm sorry, method of death for the past life, then guess I guess being born with a non-developed hand could be a possibility, but I really do not want that. Of everything that we have talked about tonight,
Yeah, that
um,
sucks.
if it was a birthmark all over my whole hand, and it was like no matter what, I had a weird birthmark on my hand, I can accept that. But I'd want this life to start with 5 digits on each. 6 actually, if I'm getting my pick. I think that having that extra digit would come in handy. Anyway,
The
that,
extra
that
digits for me, for you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that yeah, no, that was too silly. I was trying to come up with tonight's conspiracy theory. The man with 6 fingers, like
Oh,
perfect 6 fingers, I think he's the next one to guide us into the next era, the next age. I think his is the
well,
book
I
that
was
will
gonna
read for
come up with.
thousands of
I
years.
got a good conspiracy for you with this one. So all the people that come
Okay.
out and all the people that are now beautiful, right? Super beautiful and super athletic and are really healthy. Those must be people that were, saints or people that helped other people in like crazy situations. And so now they're being rewarded by being these gorgeous people or these people that are super strong or super healthy. You know what I mean? And it's funny, like I was thinking too, um, the people that are like famous and rich right now, they're not necessarily like because it wouldn't be like something like, oh, you're reincarnated and now you're rich. It'd be like, hey, you're reincarnated if you're rich now because you gave everything away before. That it would have to be the opposite. You know what I mean? In my theory.
So So you're only beautiful in this life if you've already lived through a life at like John Merrick, right?
And not
You have
necessarily like
to,
John Merrick, say for instance, like
or you get you
A
get a
Rosa
turn at
Parks, a
every
Mother
different.
Teresa, like,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Like, you were such a good person that, you know,
Whoa,
this
whoa,
time
whoa.
around, you're gorgeous. You know what I mean?
Restarting this went a little wonky. So if anybody is trying, I'm resetting it right now. Go ahead and call back in. It just all went black. I'm hoping
Oh,
that means
wild.
someone tried to call in. Yeah. Anyway, I've got it all ready for you right now, everybody. Sorry, say that last bit again.
Oh, saying like you'd have to be like, you know, Mother Teresa, or like, you know, these people that did
Yes.
such a beautiful life, that now you get to go
Well, I was going
around
to
as
say Rosa
this
Parks.
gorgeous
Yes,
person. Rosa
that's what I
Parks,
was
you
going to
know,
be
that sort
say.
of thing. Not saying that any of those people were ugly. First of all, let me get that out.
Oh no, I was going to say that I don't think that Rosa Parks and Mother Teresa belong in the same boat because Mother Teresa was not as good as things. You know what I mean? Rosa
I
Parks
mean,
like
she did a
is
lot of good
remembered
for.
as it depends. You know what I mean? I mean, like,
I'm not
you
saying,
know,
but you're
Peter
also
thinks that they're.
assuming that Rosa Parks was this amazing person her whole life. You know
No,
what I
no,
mean?
no, no,
Like,
no. I'm not
no,
assuming
I
that.
doubt
I'm
it.
not.
She
I'm
was,
just.
but you know what I mean?
I'm
Like,
not.
for what she did,
But we know
it's a
more.
huge movement.
What I'm saying is that the atrocities that may or may not have been committed by Rosa Parks are not known. Some of the ones that Mother Teresa committed are documented. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? That's all.
Sure,
That's all
sure,
I'm
sure.
saying.
Is documentation your
Hey,
hang up? Is that really what it
bad things,
is?
bad things happen. You know what I mean? But Abraham Lincoln said, and I agree with him. He said, in my experience, men with no vices have very little virtue. And when he said men, he meant all people. But you know, yeah. Don't tell me you don't drink coffee in the morning. You ain't no superhero. Anyway,
Well, it's like some
you
of
know
my
what
best
it is.
customer, right? Some of my best customers tell me, "Yo, I'm not going to do any business with you unless you have a drink with me." You know what I mean? It's like they're drug dealers or something. Like, hey, do some with me. Prove that you're not a cop. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Man. Like, sir, you want me to use power tools on the house and not leave a trail of blood, right? Or like
That's
not
how
be
people
laughing
are,
and
man.
not they want you to have a drink? Man, I mean,
They're like, hey, have a drink with me, or you're not doing any work in my home because I can't trust you if you're not the kind of man who drinks. I'm like, Jesus, that's the way you look at things. But cheers.
I mean, I guess that is the same. That is similar. That is very similar, I guess, you know, with the whole, you know, don't trust someone who doesn't pretend to relax, you know.
What's the
You know,
same thing like
everybody
my
has
dad used
something,
to
I
say?
guess.
Yeah, you don't trust a contractor with clean, brand new boots.
Yeah, exactly. What do they say? They
You
say
know,
don't trust skinny chef, right?
exactly,
They don't.
exactly.
But at the same time, you know, hey, sometimes a skinny chef is the guy who knows exactly what to do.
Yeah, or he's
It
just a really
happens.
healthy eater. You know what I mean? It happens.
There's that
Like
too.
like
Yeah.
like the whole don't get a tattoo from a guy who has no ink. Like, I guess, but
Oh
what if he's just a
yeah,
really good artist,
that makes
but
a lot of
he
sense.
hates the pain of it? You know, like, that doesn't make any sense.
Which is a fun story. This doesn't have anything to do with reincarnation, but
Oh, it does
my
actually.
good friend
Would you be
here.
reincarnated with tattoos? Go on. Sorry.
Interesting. Maybe just the ones I
Would you
gave
have the
myself, which is
would you have the affliction to get the same tattoos, or different tattoos, or just tattoos in general this time around? Go on. Sorry, I threw you off.
no, you're right. You know, I mean, how much, if anything, is retained? You know, and I guess again, it
Yeah,
would
what's
depend
residual, what's
on
not?
that.
Because
But
I mean,
yeah,
if you
this is
think tattoos are usually meaningful, or at least hold some high regard in your life, so wouldn't that carry over? I would think.
well in the modern day and age, yeah, people get
Even in the olden
tattoos that are
times, like if
meaningful to them. In olden times, there was like
you got a
tribal
tattoo if you were a
connotation in it, and
criminal,
if you look
you
into
know what I
the
mean?
well, there's that too. There's a scarlet letter.
Original
There's a
tattooing, you know what I
brand.
mean?
You know,
Besides the Polynesian
there's for
islands.
slavery. There's slavery. There's piracy. Branding someone a pirate. You know, there's a lot of reasons to get a tattoo. So, like, you know, it's kind of like, should you be afflicted with a tattoo in the next life? Is that not like the truest like expression of a liminal mistake, right? Like you
Is
made
it
that
an
mistake
affliction or is it
in the
a
last life,
mistake? Right. So
no,
is it a
it's
bad
only
mistake or a good mistake to learn from? You know what I mean? Like,
no. I don't think a tattoo is a mistake. First of all, I don't think a tattoo is a mistake. First of all, I mean, I think that one, a tattoo can be completely honorable, and it could be. There's a lot of things it could be. There's a lot of things it can be. Now, if you get a I guess I just got to get vulgar. If I get a dick on my forehead and let's just say it's infected. All right, let's just say I get a really ugly, terrible, and it's not because I've got family or cultural pride. It's not because I've accomplished something, or it's not because I'm prideful of like my artistry or the artistry of my friend. Like, all right, if
just
you're
doing it
just
to be
getting
to be evil.
yeah, like, hey, check it out. When I close my eyes, it looks like I got two nipples on my head. Okay, like, yeah, that's, in my opinion, a mistake. But I'm willing to be proven wrong at Nigh Midnite everywhere on social, nightmidnight@gmail.com. Send us the pictures of the nipples that you tattooed on your eyeballs.
You.
I want to know if you're out there. If you are, come back, like, and subscribe. You can be a feature on our show. I mean, you just pick how many Tuesdays. If you've got nipples tattooed on your eyelids, I mean, I want to see you with makeup remover and like try to get them off and be like, see, man, I told you it's not coming off. I love nipples so
If
much.
you take the time out to draw them on your eyes, I'm happy about that. You know what I mean? Even if you fake it,
but you don't get a
send me a
standing
picture, I'm
spot
in.
on the show forever. You don't get a
Well, not
standing spot
forever.
on the
Not
show.
forever.
No, and honestly,
At
don't
least
go
you're
out and get
trying.
tattoos
Hey, you're
of anything
trying.
on your face for us ever. But if you already have it, then it's cool. But we'll be able to know if it's
I don't
it's
mind.
a
Make your
don't
own
do it for us.
mistakes. Make your own mistakes. I'm not telling you what to do.
Well, if you also are looking for mistakes to make because you can't think of any of your own, at nightmidnight@gmail.com, and just send us a letter and ask us what mistake we
Got
might
many
make
dice
if
for
we
you.
were in a position to want to make a mistake. And trust me, sometimes I'm feeling
Full
creative.
of them. I am full of mistakes and I'm full of creativity,
Full of
which
mistakes.
is 10
Yeah,
times worse.
some of them I may have actually done, but it'll always be in one of those heard it from a friend, right? It's a very REO Speedwagon. I'll just put it that way, you know? Heard it from a friend who? Come on. Anyway. Well,
I knew
with
that.
Reincarnation, I think that I know. I just want to make sure to spell it out and spoon feed it because I'm acting like, haha. Anyway. Yeah, that was me talking about Marvel now. But I think with Reincarnation, that the ideas of the like the way your daughter put it, I would love to get more detail if she has any, because that sounds to me like how I think of it, the collective unconscious, in a way, as if we're all connected to, you know, like a wireless, and you know, like the data's never gone. Like the one thing that we know from science is that nothing is ever gone.
Right. Energy disperses, it doesn't go away.
Energy, well, things change. Nothing isn't. I am not exactly the person I was yesterday. I learned something yesterday that changed my mind a little bit. I stubbed my toe and I didn't have this bruise yesterday. Yesterday, Jay didn't have a bruise, right? Today, Jay does. And so we're not the same guy, you know? I mean, I literally have more atoms in my body than I did when I was 7 years old. And I don't even have the same atoms in my body I had 10 years ago, right?
Speaking of which,
So,
that brings me to another thing. Go ahead.
No, continue. I mean,
Another
really, like,
professor
we're in
was
a
talking
constant state of
about
transformation.
right. That's
all my
exactly
point is.
what this other professor was talking about. He was a Christian reincarnation believer, because he believed that
Okay.
we're not reincarnating so much as a total reincarnation, but because, like you were saying, like your cells, so every, I forget what the amount of days or whatever it was, but he talks about how your cells die off and it's a new cell that comes back. So never in your lifetime are you ever the same person. You are constantly reincarnating because your cells are dying and coming back as cells again. So that is proof of reincarnation, because we always think of reincarnation as this global thing, like this huge change, like your whole body shifting in. It's like, no, your cells are reincarnating every day, every 7 years. into new
Every
cells,
7
and
years, yeah.
inside of those cells are being, you know what I mean? And I was like, wow, that is one I'm on board with. Like, holy crap. Like you said, you're never the same person because you're constantly dying and coming back.
Mhm.
Like
At
your
this
skin
moment
is
right
literally
now,
not the skin that you had when you were
No.
5 years old. It's total different skin.
It's not that this is more and bigger skin that stretched around the frame. No, 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 no. All of those atoms and
All
cells
new.
that
Yep.
made up the skin that child me was wearing, they've all shed. They've all gone. This is not,
They've all
and
died.
that's
You know what I
the other
mean?
reason why I like the idea of the they usually don't get to continue talking in the scientific realm, but the scientists who sometimes try to put forward like the drastic leaps forward in evolutionary ideas, basically it's like people trying to say in a scientific journal the opening dialogue that Patrick Stewart gives in X-Men, right? It's like every
All right.
few generations leap, like they try to put that one forward. But if you think about it, if you could invoke, or if you could trigger evolution, then I could become a different being entirely. I mean, over the course of 7 years, at the very least, as one cell dies, you teach it to make to breed a slightly separate cell, and then in 7 years, I could be completely different, right? And so then, would the person that was me be dead, and reincarnation, like everything is in such a state of change. I think that our ideas of consciousness, there's something to the collective unconscious, in my opinion. Personally, I don't tend to aim toward the whole soul forever, like one, like I don't think it's going to be me, and it's like, yay, spirit Jason, astral projecting through the cosmos just like Doctor Strange,
I think that's just
Dormammu.
putting a name to what you're saying, though. You know what I mean? Like you're saying collective conscience. It's like your conscious soul, same thing. You know what I mean? It's just a
Well,
simplified way of
but I'm
naming
not thinking
something.
about it as like, yeah, but I don't think of it as that, but it's a loss of person entirely. Like, I would be gone in mine, but like people who are still alive, receivers, like antennas that are still picking up signals, they might pick up a memory of mine, and that might make them think that they are the reincarnated me. But
Right.
look,
So
on
are
a
you saying
clear
your
night,
memories
you
are
get.
you? Or are you saying your memories are just informational data? You know what I mean?
I think
Or your memory,
there's a
because
lot of things
that's
that
how I
work
look at it. Like
together.
my memory, like I look at like, okay, my memories and experiences make up who I am. So that
I
in
believe
theory
that.
is how I believe like my soul exists, not so much a like you're like you were kind of saying, like I don't believe as a in like a physical sense where you can touch it or it can move something or do something like that. But my being, my memories, my experiences, all that sort of stuff, my feelings, they're all my what make me up, which are my soul. So I believe that amount of whatever that is, if that's a measurable thing, can be transferred on to something else. It not necessarily something else like a thing, but transferred into something else or someone else to some degree. Some of it, not all of it, but some portion of it. You know what I mean? Because experiences are things that are also shared. Feelings are things that are shared. So not only
Exactly.
not only is that something to me that's like when you like ghosts for that instance, like that traumatizing feeling is passed on because everyone fears this area because it's spooky. Why is it spooky? Because the feelings of whatever happened here
Yes.
have been there so long that now it's
Hmm.
permeated this area. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing. Like you were
Yeah.
saying, same thing like predatory. We're instinctual animals. You know what I mean? Like everyone's
Hmm.
afraid of a tiger. Most people don't want to just walk up and bear. Even people that love tigers, like I love big cats and all that stuff. I still have a
I love
natural
tigers.
fear.
I
Still have a
love tigers. Yeah,
natural fear. You know what I
I'm
mean?
not sneaking up on one. It's not
Yeah,
going to
well, I'm not
happen. I don't
sneaking
love
up
them
on
like
one, and even if
that.
there's one just walking down the street, I'm not going to pet it.
No.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
want to watch it from
Dude,
afar and be like, wow, this
I
thing is
love
amazing.
wolves. I love wolves, right? I
Yeah,
love wolves.
yeah, yeah,
Here's a little
absolutely.
bit of an aside. There's this guy, and when I was working in LA, I was working at this restaurant I was managing, and he would come in from time to time. He was always in the area, but he was like this tall, muscular guy, and I don't think he was an actor, but he had this all white wolf. It was the chillest creature ever. And I remember, like, you know me, I love wolves. Chatting with him, like, said, I think that's the most gorgeous creature in the world. I go, I don't think I should pet it, but I think it'd be cool. He's like, well, you know, he understands. He knows people wanna, and he's all right with it. He just doesn't want to be all. And it was like, I did get to pet him, you know, really quick. Like I put it out there. We said, "What's up?" And I was chatting with him. He's like, "That's not a dog. Like that. There is a creature I've made friends
different.
with."
Yeah.
And I've got him to understand that us working together is beneficial. I go, but that's not
right.
a dog. Don't
It's not the
like,
same.
This 98% wolf. Like people who think that they're gonna have like, and that's why me, like, I'm glad, like, I was asking him, because that's what I thought. Like, you know, but he's like, no, we have an arrangement, we have an unspoken agreement, and I make sure to respect it too. You know what I mean? Like, I was like,
yeah, exactly.
That is
yeah.
awesome.
I'm not its owner, I'm its partner. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that kind of a thing.
That's kind of there's kind of a relationship there with reincarnation. The whole idea of, you know, man's best friend. You know, we all kind of just everything that makes humanity human, and maybe it does stick closer to certain areas. You know, these things live on. You know, even our relationship with animals. You know, some people don't have deep connections to cats or dogs. Some people are one or the other, you know, and you know, why does every culture say man's best friend, and nobody knows exactly when we turned the first wolf into docile, right? You know, like,
right.
you know, this is genetic memory, is how I think of it. But it's also could be like collective unconscious. Like, we know that we can trust dogs because we always, because we've worked at it for generations together, and they know they can trust us. You know, it's only a dog that's been hurt by humans.
The dog Bible. So
it's written in the dog Bible. The dog Bible, it's being hidden by the Vatican. They don't want it
19:2.
Bauticus, right?
That's in
the now me, I don't just stick to the doctrine of the 66 books of the dog Bible. I read the Abarcrypha as well. Anyway, whoa, I'm all about the Abarcrypha.
Oh,
you know
God.
what I mean? Goodness, you know it. Oh, Maccabees.
Get out of here.
I don't even remember Maccabees. Just Enoch is the one. You know what I mean? Enoch is so cool, man.
I like that name. I've always liked that name.
Enoch's a good one. Enoch is a good one. I do like that one quite some.
He was also
now he again talking about what you brought up before, actually.
But
no, that was not Enoch. That was wait. The leader of the it was
the Sleestacks in
anyway. The leader of the Sleestacks was not Enoch. It was not Enoch. It was it was like it was Nook. It was like a Nook.
Oh, I thought in the newer movies it was Enoch.
It was close.
It was Land of the Lost. That's what I'm thinking.
No, you got to remember that Leonard Nimoy's voice was.
No, I'm saying Land of the Lost. That movie with Will Ferrell.
Land of the Lost. Yeah.
God,
I hope I get it. I hope I get it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, you know, I bought Music Man on vinyl. Anyway, because of that.
Sweet.
Got it now. Yeah, you know me. Got to have them show tunes. What was I saying? Oh, damn.
You're saying
it
goes into something else.
Before about the how the spirit, does the spirit go on? Does the spirit, you know, do you ascend to heaven? Now in the Bible they say that he's the only one who was actually raised up, and that's why they wrote all the stuff about him. He's the only person in the Bible that they say was taken to heaven, like in physical form, right? And so
no,
that there,
not in physical form. He's the only one who was taken to heaven directly, as in like he didn't die. He just boom heaven.
They're boom. They just took him. Yeah.
No, I know, like as in he didn't die, not as in that he was in human form, that he never had to die to reach heaven.
There's there's not these fine details in the book. A lot of people, I'm just bringing up what the argument is. The argument is you're gonna find people, like I'm saying, I just like to make sure you know that there's a lot of people out there who are going to stand up to you and say, no, it doesn't say that his body was left behind and he didn't die, that he was raised. But no, they took all of them. People are going to fight with you and say that he was taken bodily form to heaven. So that kind of leads to what you were saying about like the methods of.
I guess it depends on which what's it, not iteration, which translation thing, there's a word I'm thinking about, which translation of the Bible you're talking about, because most of them in the Jewish translations, it doesn't talk about him going in spiritual form, in physical form. It talks about him being the only one to not die to reach heaven. That's like the biggest thing, because that's what I was saying. Remember, like, don't you have to die and be resurrected in heaven, or reincarnated or resurrected, how you believe, or do you have to, or do you go up in spirit form? Because Enoch, like you're saying, is the only one who didn't die and is in heaven, is a belief. In the Jewish translation of the Bible, I should say.
I think that for the people who believe that the spirit continues after and wherever it goes, I think, your body's here, the physical body drops, but your soul's still standing there like, whoa, what just happened? Like, like astral projecting is the way that it is described. The soul, the rapture, when people talk about the rapture, they talk about now that's the question. Are they being taken in bodily form? Do people disappear, or are all of us heathens here to sweep up the bodies? Right. And that's what I contend. I think that anytime that if you are like yourself outside of this human body, that's a reincarnation. I think that transcendence, if I were to download myself into a robot,
by definition would have to be.
That is reincarnation. That is
your consciousness is in some other vessel, so that's reincarnation.
Yeah. Exactly. Just like I don't care if a doctor injects me with something and then, and then I evolve into, 3 eyes and fins, whatever. Then that's evolution. Is it by method of intervention? Yeah. But I mean, whether you're looking at the Bible or ancient aliens or just going to the doctor and getting a measles shot as a child so that you're allowed to go to kindergarten, our lives are ruled around trying to control what makes us sick and like trying to improve our lives. Well, I mean, yeah, basically trying to push it back.
Always stopping death. Yeah.
Everything is about pushing that day back one more, right? Why do you quit cigarettes? It's not because they taste bad. Everyone knows they don't taste bad. Everyone knows they taste delicious.
Since the 60s.
Oh, I mean, I'm not talking about false stuff. Everyone knows they do. They look, cigarettes taste good, and not just
they taste
that,
horrible.
They make you look so cool. I don't like to admit it, but it's the truth. And you know what?
Oh,
they're disgusting. Gosh. They're gross. It's true because you got to get over that. You have to accept it as cool to finally realize that you can get too cool for school, right?
Beauty is pain, right? Cool is deadly. I'm just saying.
I think that is the way it goes. You gotta take some risk, no reward without risk, right? Or is that bad karma to risk the life of yourself? Right. You're a living creature. I mean,
you're throwing your life away for risk, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good question. Actually, I like that.
You see what I mean? Yeah, I mean, it's the same idea as Catholics don't believe suicides make it to heaven, right? It's the same concept applied to karma. It is.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
I mean, is life so precious that bungee jumping is something that gets you off the good list?
Right, because you're throwing away your chance.
It doesn't matter that the rope didn't snap. It matters that you went to a
You
place
tried.
and you didn't inspect the rope. You trusted their ropes. And what if? And what if that's all? Now, that's not like a heavenly decree from the man in the golden throne, or is it just the natural law of, you know, that just always has been ever since the two true gods, chaos and order, have been building and tearing apart the universe, right? I mean, I'm saying, you know, or is it like the Phantom Toll Booth? No, it's not the Phantom Toll Booth. Yes, it is. Or is it like the Phantom Toll Booth, and we have to get there to like learn how to read the letters and numbers that come out of our mouth, and then the princesses of rhyme and reason have to get back together and not be so angry or like kidnapped or something, and then that's the only way we can stop being cartoons. Everybody, there's a great movie called The Phantom Toll Booth. I don't know why I can't get it out of my mind, but yeah. Please like, subscribe. This has been Reincarnation. No, I'm not going to end it like that. But yeah, you know, I think I think that this is one of the most fascinating topics. I really think this is one of the most fascinating topics. I think that there's kind of never-ending discussion almost, because again, any of these topics where we're all going to be hard pressed to get, you know, the Tic Tac footage version of reincarnation. You know what I mean? Like the Tic Tac footage, those spinning, man. All right, look, even just 1997 and the Phoenix Lights. I mean, get the fuck out of here, flares. Look, we have stuff that's like there's something in the sky. All right, we don't have anything of that high level, you know, evidence except word of mouth. Which again, even me, like these kids, and I got stuck reading just Dr. Jim Tucker all week because of all of these kids. And still, when I tell you, it's the first thing. Well, what if they saw on TV, and what if they read? Kids are smart, and that's
of course
the thing.
I'm a disbeliever. That's the thing.
No. I'm not calling you out for it. I'm saying that like the skeptic mind needs to think that. The skeptic mind needs to think that. I kept that in my mind too. Like I want to give the benefit of the doubt, but I also want to make sure that I'm not just being gullible.
But, well, my thing, you know, it's not only a gullible thing. It's like we were both saying before, like, I don't want to know. You know what I mean? So in my mind, it's like, okay, you're searching for this thing, but why? Why really do you want to know? Because the way I look at this is like most people that need to know that sort of a thing are the people that are looking for reasons to do things that they're doing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Looking for purpose in life, looking for a justification, looking for this, you know what I mean? It's like, just do good. Just do it for the sake of doing good. You know what I mean? Or just, if you're trying to figure out why this kid is having problems, help them not have the problem. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like,
go find that, right?
Yeah. You know what I mean? Find the deep-seated thing. Like, oh my God, you're afraid of this. Let's not let this into your life anymore. Let's stop this trauma from happening, instead of being like, wow, this proves this other theory. So I'm going to study you for 24 years and you're going to live with this just so I can study you. Like, God, my brain goes, are we really better for knowing? I'm just saying, not saying that's what he's like torturing them, but I'm saying like, are we really better for knowing now that you did this research?
Well, one, I think that, well, this is one of those extremely subjective things, whereas some people, you know, I think objectively, the truth is it probably is less beneficial to know, you know, than to just worry about living a good life every day and throw those dice, right? You know what I mean? Throw the dice of be nice, you know. Penn Jillette said one of my favorite things, you know, he tells that story of how, you know, because he's an atheist, proud atheist, and he says that you know, he had a Christian who was coming down on him, and if I'm messing up the story, I apologize. The way I remember it is that they were persecuting him for not having a belief in a higher power, and they said, so if you don't believe in God, what's to stop? If no one believed in God, what would stop us from killing and raping each other? Or, you know, and he goes, well, I don't want to do any of those things. I just don't wake up thinking about committing those acts. And so my fear now is that the only thing stopping you and maybe many other people is the fact that you're just afraid you're going to get in trouble. You know what I mean? Like that's karmic idea. That's karma. I mean, that's almost like a karmic idea in the Christian mindset, which is, don't just not be banging your neighbor's wife. Don't be thinking about banging your neighbor's wife.
Well,
Right?
yeah, I think the whole idea of that too is like, if you're thinking about it, your heart's leading you more to do it. The more you think of something, kind of that whole manifestation thing, the more you think and dwell on something, you eventually figure out ways to justify it and make it okay for you to do it, you know?
But
So
that
I
is
get that.
considered like that's a demerit though. That's a spiritual demerit right there, right? Like maybe an accident the first time, but after a week of every night and you're thinking about
No,
her, it's the same
I guess
girl. All
not
right,
necessarily unless you're,
then is that like a
yeah, it's
look at
not,
me.
I
Now I'm the
mean,
one getting granular. Now
no,
I want to ask all the
I,
details.
I mean, I guess. Well, we don't have much
You
time, but I was gonna say, I
uh,
think it's not necessarily like when you think about sin and stuff like that. It's not necessarily a direct point system. So and that's kind of how like any scripture or any spirituality, they don't really have like point. Well, some of them do. Let's bring that up later, but
some
most
may
of them
have
don't
point
have.
systems,
Yeah,
yeah.
some have point systems, but most of them don't, where it's like, okay, if you do this, this will equal this back for good, you know what I mean? So because of that,
They're,
it's like, if you're thinking about boning your wife, boning your neighbor's wife, not necessarily saying that, if you do that, you're already sinning and you're bad and you're going to die. No, it's like, hey, stop doing that because that's not a good thing to do. Right? Like, that's agreed. Like, you're coveting
you,
your neighbor's
yeah,
wife. That's not a
yeah,
good thing. It's not that, hey, you're thinking
yeah,
about it and
right?
that's evil, you're going to die. No, stop doing that because it's not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's
I think you're overthinking it a bit when it comes to that. Like people, or you're
I'm
thinking of it
I'm
like,
only
you know what I mean?
I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm playing devil's advocate
Sure,
for the
sure,
sole
yeah, I
purpose
get
of,
it.
like
I get it.
other people will get up in arms about this. I like
Well,
bringing it
yeah,
up
yeah.
because at
I
least
think
with
I think there's
with
always
my friend
zealots in
Elgin, me
everything,
and him have yeah, exactly. Me and Elgin have
And
always been
that's
able
what
to like
ruins most religions, honestly, are
play
zealots.
on exactly. And,
It's like,
and I
what I
don't
mean?
know.
Like, dead honesty. Like, that's exactly what ruins most
Here's my
religious, most spiritual beliefs. The zealots are the ones that ruin it. Even like hippies, and stuff like that. That culture was ruined by people that went way over the top with it. You know what I mean?
it's just it's living to an extreme in anything. You know what I
In
mean?
any
I
way.
mean personally,
Exactly, man. You nailed that on the
I
head for sure. A
you
bit
know,
of
I
life
think
balance, man.
a bit of life balance. I don't care what your beliefs are. If you actually investigate your life beliefs, I guarantee whatever it is, it's just trying to teach you how to keep things in check. All of it, That's all it is. Just be chill, be nice right now, and then every day tomorrow's better. If everyone was good right now, then tomorrow would start off great, and then we'd never
One
have a
thing
bad day,
I wanted to end it all, and then
right?
yeah, exactly. And it's something that my daughter said after we had that conversation
Oh
about
yes,
reincarnation,
wise
right?
words from Ruby. Wise words from
Exactly.
Ruby.
From my daughter Ruby. She said, "Papa, if everybody loved everyone and everybody was working to make sure everybody had everything, there wouldn't be no need for reincarnation." I was like, "What are you talking about?" Right? She said, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
think about this. If everyone was working for the greater good of well, not greater good, but she said for, whatever. I'm just going to say greater good. She said, if everyone was working for the greater good and making sure everyone had food and everyone had a place to live and everyone was loved by somebody, and we could take on kids who don't have their parents." And she was joking because my parents are gone. She calls me, I call myself orphan. She said, we took on orphans and older people like you too, that need people that need love. She goes, think about what it would do to the world. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, first of all, people would probably live longer, right? I'm like, yeah, you're right. She
Mm-hmm.
goes, people also wouldn't be greedy. So there probably wouldn't be wars. That's what you always say, right, Papa? I'm like, you're right. There wouldn't be wars because everyone's working to make sure everyone's happy and everyone's uniform or unified and happy and living the best life that they can. She goes, well, then why would you need to worry about if you die? if if you were worrying about all these other things and making sure everyone's happy, there wouldn't be a need for reincarnation. I was like,
You'd know
man,
every you'd
that
know
is
it.
deep.
You'd know all you'd know all your people tomorrow are taken care of.
Doesn't matter, right? It
Well,
would never matter because you would just think forever everyone's getting taken care of from now on. You wouldn't even
So
the idea of
with your
reincarnation would never
beliefs,
enter your mind.
your daughter is there's only one word and it's a moniker and it's a title, and I want to call her Bodhisattva. She is destined to be Buddha. She is destined to be a Buddha. I don't know what else to say.
I think she is born into a life of love, and all she understands is love, you know? And she's
And man,
truly one of those people
I've
who,
never seen
because I'm a horrible person that
No,
that I'm blessed with
couldn't
that I'm
happen.
blessed with this child. You know what I mean?
No. Oh, so then, yeah, I see. Elgin is showing his Christian beliefs again, because only a bad father can have a good child, and now we know that her children are gonna be shits as well, right? So she's the good generation. Honestly, you got two really good kids. You got two really good kids, man. Honestly,
yeah, I'm lucky.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I'm lucky.
Your kids are walking proof that the sins of the father are not inherited. You're right.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Holy crap.
That's funny.
Ain't that the truth? That's something I thought, mean, man, she's so right. It reminds me of, remember when we were kids and I was like, man, if we had perfect bodies, we would have no need for buttholes.
I remember arguing that was just ridiculous. It was so stupid. Because then I told you,
everything. I said, it's perfect. We have no waste.
No, then you're saying that based on the original argument that so God's design is wrong, right? So why do we have an asshole?
It's not our design. We didn't have assholes until we were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and then we started pooping everywhere and messing up the earth. It's not in the book.
That you're just making shit up.
Well, of course, he doesn't go into he doesn't go into details about
now
buttholes.
All right. When it comes to the spontaneous appearance of the
why
anus,
would that be necessary to
Elgin
be in the Bible?
Doesn't need any more scripture. Elgin's
You're getting granular, and
fine.
I don't like it.
Wow, there it is. There it is, right? And what was it just a couple episodes ago when I said, what if we were only down to 100 million people on Earth, and you just forgot? No, we'd never build back up.
Percentages of that is crazy.
Happen. No, and then you start quoting me. It's like, what is that, like 0.06? I'm just like, bro, I'm just spitballing ideas, man. Yeah, see?
Of course. You gotta have those arguments. Those are good arguments.
Go ask Bodhisattva Ruby, and she'll explain it to you. All right, and she'll make sure to wash all this negativity away. I got a feeling that she's destined for big things. You know what I mean?
Right.
There is a satchel. There's a box or a satchel full of things, and she's the only one who can pick the item that will prove that she's the one. Oh wait, that's reincarnation. But she doesn't need it. All the kids
started school here, right?
She's and I told her, Nirvana. Yeah.
Right? All the kids started school here. And I said, Ruby, this conversation, it was this weekend we were talking about it. I said, when you go to school, you need to talk to all your friends about this. You need to tell all your friends how you feel. And hopefully little conversations like this will spread like wildfire. Can you imagine, like, generations from now, we hear like, oh, we've done it. We've all unified everybody, and I don't even want her to get praise. Honestly, I just want it to be like, somebody was talking about this in 2022, and now we all do it. I'm like, oh my gosh, how cool is this? That would be awesome feeling. You know what I mean? Just an awesome feeling.
That's when the future looks like the future from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, not the most recent one.
Yeah. Right? Oh, no, you know? God, that was horrible.
No, what are you talking about? Oh, the new one? Look, I'm going to go ahead and say, and this is where, this is Nigh Midnite, extra content. We're not talking about reincarnation no more. Now it's something onto the true import, which is the most recent Bill and Ted movie. One, very glad Alex Winter came back, because I didn't expect him to do it. Honestly, I thought he'd be the holdout. I thought he'd be like, nah, man, you know I moved on, right? I don't exactly look like a lost boy.
You saw that paycheck, right? You know what I mean?
I mean, look, he does directing things, does documentaries and stuff. So you mean, hey, Alex Winter, still following
the same kind of money. Still love him as
Bill
actor,
S. Preston, Esquire, right? And of course, whether or not anyone wants to believe they're a fan, we've followed Ted Theodore Logan ever since. You know what I mean?
All day.
All day. And yeah,
John
the
Wick and
newest one,
everything.
it was 100% fan service, but what did we fucking expect after 20 years of begging for just give me anything? And they're like, well, hey, look, we're not teenagers. We don't want to just say 69 all the time. You know,
You know what I want? You
like,
know what I want
it
after
was
20
fan
years?
service, but it was perfect. Come
No.
on.
You know what? You know what movie was perfect? Argue me this and we can
It was
end it on this
fine.
one. Have you seen the new
Oh, fine.
Ghostbusters?
This guy wants to end it. The newest? No, I haven't yet. That is my downfall. I want to see it.
Stop what you're doing
Paul
tonight.
Rudd, Finn Wolfhard.
Stop what you're doing tonight. Watch
Well.
it. Complete fan service. Completely done perfectly, where they can now take that era of generation and run with it. I love the way they did that. It's kind of how they should have done all the Star Trek movies, all the Star Wars movies. So you're starting this new generation of people who love the old ways or the old ones and keeping the old people happy. I mean, it's done perfectly, absolutely perfect. And it's 30 years, 30 plus years past when the originals came out.
Elgin says, bring back the Pebbles and Bam Bam show. You heard it here. All right, everyone.
No, Jetsons. I'm a Jetsons fan, not a Flintstones person.
Really? You know what I mean?
Yeah, last month was George Jetson's birthday. So
was it really?
It was July,
How old
July
is he now?
something 2022. No, that's when he was born, was July something 2022, I think.
We need to find this child. I don't know what we do next. I just want to know if there is a George Jetson. Is there a George Jetson? Like a real person who's named, George Jetson? Jane, his wife?
Oh, no.
Daughter Judy? Their boy Elroy? Yeah, at Jetsons, they break out into chopsticks in there. Anyway, Hanna-Barbera, Chuck and Joe, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, August 27th, 2022. Go on. Sorry.
Oh, so it's upcoming. So George Jetson's not been born yet.
Yep,
so,
he's coming
all right,
up.
Everyone. As spake in Revelation, find the Antichrist child before he is born, George Jetson, August 27th, 2022. Do you guys want Damien? Has anyone seen The Omen? I actually just watched all three again this week. Yeah. George Jetson could be the Antichrist. What about that?
Or not.
Is that next week's episode? Or not?
Or not.
Hey, if anyone made it to the end, if you want to like it, please, or say what you think. We check comments, we check our email, we're on all the socials, and yeah, we're hoping to have someone on tonight who has some personal experience with reincarnation. And like I said, this is a topic that there's so much to do. We're planning on coming back and having.
We'll do it again. Yeah, we'll probably double back.
Yeah.
Double back and have some people who have some experiences. I think that'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So write us, let us know if you've got a fun experience or not fun. We'd love to have you on the show too. So let us know. Thank you very much. I wish I could speak for her. She's too wise, but Bodhisattva Ruby, I'm sure, loves you all. Man, kid's wise. Have a great night, everyone. Good Tuesday, good rest.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you again.